just to get started, my name is Jeff Toyster. I'll be helping us out by facilitating a little bit today. And I'm going to ask our leaders to introduce themselves. So easy questions, the answers you already know. Name, role, organization, and if you'd like to tell us something else about yourself, maybe a fun fact, that's fine too.
Hi, my name's Clare Wenham. I work for New Voice Media in product and strategy marketing. And my fun fact is I'm currently really struggling with the jet lag. So, yeah, about 30 hours in at the moment.
My name's Tristan Barnum. I'm the VP of Marketing at Telcentris. We make a product line called Vox in Business. Our booth's right over there. Fun fact would be this is the first time I've had a boss in a very long time. I just started at Telcentris, but I used to have my own company and sold it and just finally let it go. My baby grew up, so this is fun and exciting for me.
My name's Ruben Moffett. I'm COO of TantaComm. We provide call recording and quality monitoring solutions. We've been in business for about 18 years. I spent over 15 years in the big outsourced contact center industry, so a lot of operational and IT experience.
Hi, my name is Dave Bethers. I'm with TCN. We're leading call center technology for inbound and outbound call center platforms. I've been with TCN for about 7 years. Something interesting about me, I've got 5 kids. When the youngest was born, the oldest was 8. So we've got a lot going on.
All right, so we've got a lot of technology represented, and one thing that's generally true about people involved in technology, enthusiasm for the technology. So maybe we'll start off and just ask you, what are you really excited about from the call center technology standpoint?
Well, New Voice Media, we are totally and utterly cloud-based. So for us, that is where the future is, and we're really excited about what cloud is enabling our customers to do. I mean, for example, we set ourselves a great record. About 2 weeks ago was the big Salesforce event in London, and we had a customer up and running and deployed in 90 minutes from signing the order form. So we think cloud is totally revolutionizing cloud contact centers.
I'll go. Well, we provide voice services and also data services to small businesses and contact centers. And we also do quite a bit in the cloud. Our infrastructure is all a cloud-based platform. We have partnerships that allow us to provide very low rates for voice over IP so that stuff gets updated constantly, which is really nice through a wonderful system that allows us to provide just incredibly low rate decks to contact centers, so constantly saving money. And we just recently rolled out an SMS product that allows you access to an API that allows you to send tons and tons of SMS, inbound, outbound, even internationally, and we're some of the only people doing that stuff, and it's been very successful so far, so we're hoping at the show we're going to see a lot more SMS customers, and we have been having some great conversations about that so far.
I guess I would echo those thoughts. The delivery channels that are available now are transforming how we deliver our services, and that's very exciting to us. The other part is the way we're communicating or our customers are communicating with their clients. It used to be that we talked about multi-channels in terms of inbound, outbound, email, and chat, but today it's much more broad than that. The social media channels that are evolving, the unified communications that are evolving, the fact that we're starting to see Jabber and Microsoft Link in the contact center is really exciting to us.
I think some of the comments are very interesting here. You'll notice and you'll hear the term cloud-based. Oh, that's cloud. It's in the cloud. I've got to have something in the cloud. That's fantastic. How long has application services been around? How long has software as a service been around? Some of these ASPs, some of these terms with a new label of cloud technology, they've been around for a while. Our company, for example, we've been around for actually 10 years, 11 years now. In the cloud, we just didn't know it was called the cloud back then. But it's fascinating, and I love it that now it's a standard. Now we buy our movie tickets online in the cloud. Now we bank online in the cloud. It's accepted. The borders are removed, not only international borders, but even location borders. How many places, how many companies here say, I have 5 or 6 different locations, and I can see what those individuals are doing under one roof. There's no borders now.
And I guess building upon something that one of the thought leaders said in an earlier session is concern about disasters in the contact center. And as we're starting to communicate and do business in these very open ways, how do we make sure that this data is protected? Those are the challenges that we're thinking about every day.
So we want to give you a chance to ask some of your questions.
So I want to push the line a little bit and say, is there one piece of technology you would say today that will not be here in the next year to 5 years?
God, I hope
will
it's
be
faxing.
obsolete? Good one.
It doesn't do well over IP. Everyone struggles with it, and it's just super antiquated. We actually have a really cool fax delivery mechanism in our consumer product, actually, that is a mobile chat client, essentially, that you can go over the top of your SMS and voice services and use this app. And one of the only features that I use in it is faxing, because it's the only thing I have that doesn't require me to get up, walk to a scanner, deal with all that stuff. So I'm faxing on my phone. So I hope to God fax goes away.
I would totally echo that. I mean, I've got a niece and nephew that are about 12, 13, and I had to actually explain what faxing was about 6 months ago, and I thought, if they don't know what it is, the technology's dead, because they've got their fingers on the pulse of, SMS texting, mobile apps, voice over IP, Skype. They can do all that at 12, so if they don't know what faxing is, I would say it's definitely on its way out.
I guess one thing that we've seen slowly dying over probably the last 5 to 10 years has been the old TDM analog market. We continue to see a number of our customers still operating in the TDM world, but that is slowly beginning to actually die. We've been waiting for that for quite some time. And I guess I would also answer this a slightly different way. We're seeing a lot of bundled solutions today in the marketplace in terms of technologies. And one thing that I would kind of predict is that as a solution becomes more of a commodity, you're going to see more needs for flexibility and less bundling, more open architecture. I think you will see bundling whenever there is innovation and something new, but that's not really something that can sustain over time.
That's interesting. I see different aspects of that, because I see services that before you had to pay for individually for each specific service. You had to have a specific vendor for each service, and it was a nightmare to manage. Nowadays, you can go and consolidate or bundle those services. You should expect that many of those services are available on demand without having to pay extra. Frankly, there should be services that are free or as a value add tied to a core product line. Obviously, you have to keep that core competency and not get too diverse so that you're losing or distilling your knowledge. It has to be expertly presented and expertly delivered and expertly serviced.
I think what got hit on a little bit there too is this idea of an open architecture, and I think proprietary solutions are just, I hope they're on the way out. You've got an Avaya system and you got to get your Avaya phones and your Avaya this and your Avaya that. I think that's not in keeping with the whole spirit of the web, the spirit of free information and sharing and interoperability, and this idea that we can put together solutions from a bunch of different providers and assume that they're all going to play nice together through common APIs and common standards, I think is really important, and companies are learning to shy away from that big monolithic nastiness that we've had with proprietary technology in the past.
If I could add to that, I think one of the reasons for that is the way that services are paid for. We're moving away, and we have been moving away from contract-based service. The mindset is, if I want it, I'd like to pay for it now. I want the service to start now. And if I stop liking it, I should stop having to pay for it. I think that drives the open architecture. I think that drives the innovation. It definitely pushes the limits of what's capable.
It did make me remember that this is a few years ago, manually transferring data from one system to another. So sorry, what other questions do you have for our thought leaders?
So you talked about the openness and the APIs and open standards and whatnot, which is something we definitely believe in as well. How do you compare and contrast that with the operational complexities? Meaning, if you have 20 different vendors across all these different pieces of your business overall, yes, they have open API, yes, they have ability to kind of work, but you still have to manage all those different pieces, right? So where's the balance there between those two?
If I could sort of jump on that. There's a couple different places where you're going to have to be careful, but I think companies are learning to court business through extended demonstrations. We were just moving over to Salesforce. I jumped on that thing. I integrated every system we had before we ever wrote them a check. And I made sure that was staff that we either had already that could be trained, or bringing on the right people and the right consultants to help either get it set up or manage those systems going forward. But being able to get in there and poke at stuff is something that I absolutely demand anymore of when we're rolling out technology. But the good news is a lot of those things are just consolidating naturally. When you have just a nice web API, a lot of times that's just a very simple thing to do, and it doesn't require a big, expensive, fancy, Cisco certification to do, because that's something, any teenager can do these days jumping out of high school. They can write you an iPhone app and integrate it into Salesforce, and you're off and running. And those are the people that are starting up these great consultancies and being able to come in and really put together a great solution that you can be sure will work before you ever pay for it, and sort of what was mentioned earlier, if it doesn't work for you, jump off of it and try something else. So there's sort of more R&D, I think, going on in that space.
I really think the onus falls on the providers, the vendors themselves. They've got to be willing and able to work with other vendors. Sometimes you're not going to see that amount of flexibility from some providers, but those that do are going to ultimately win.
I think that's key. Have good, strong channel partnerships within the vendors and see who they're affiliated with and how they can leverage those processes. I think the companies, your individual vendors, need to, I think a great place to evaluate a vendor's API is to look at their core product. How is it designed? How is the graphic interface, the user interface designed? How easy is it? How intuitive is it? Because those same people that built that interface, they're the same people that built the API, and that same nightmare that you may experience on the front end would be the exact same nightmare or fascinating experience with either use those type of things on the back end. So it's a great place to evaluate the design.
If I may, I'd like to come at that from a slightly different angle. I think the idea of multiple vendors kind of harks back to developing a best-of-breed solution. And I think certainly in the UK, what we've discovered is that people are no longer seeking the best provider for every single nuance of functionality they need. Instead, they're looking at their own functionality and thinking, do I need the best of breed, or do I need good enough? So as vendors begin to offer a wider range of services, instead of saying, okay, whilst they offer, for example, workforce management, they're not the market leader, but what they do offer is good enough for me and my needs. This means I can get 2 or 3 services from one provider rather than having to juggle several to get that best of breed.
Thank you. What other questions do you have for our thought leaders? Let me jump in and as technology gurus, I'm on the people side of things, and we always see this kind of chasm in the middle, especially when we're implementing new technology. What advice do you have for technology implementations to ensure that they're successful?
I think getting buy-in from a whole range of stakeholders. What we're discovering is that often the conversations we're having is no longer with IT. So we used to have lots of discussions with IT, and IT would decide on the solution and the implementation. And then business operations, the guys who actually had to use the solution in their day-to-day job, were saying, actually, this doesn't do what I want it to do, and therefore the implementation was a rocky road because they then had to get buy-in, and you then had to discover the workarounds to get the solution to do what was actually needed. So I think making sure that the business and the operations are involved in implementation, and even before that, from the actual purchasing decisions, is really important.
I think that's a good point. I think that once you've done that, I think training just becomes hugely important, and it's often neglected. And I think making sure everyone is taking the same type of training so that when systems do get used and implemented, you're getting good data in, everyone's filling out the same forms, everyone's doing the right stuff so that you can get decent analytics out of that, and then all just the fundamentals start with good training.
Everyone likes to chase the shiny quarters, and when we go into contact center operations, we oftentimes find that people are missing the fundamentals. So, our advice really is make sure you're doing the basics and doing the basics really well before you start adding a lot of flash. Oftentimes those have the biggest rewards.
I think, sorry, are you all good?
I'm done.
I think to carry out and execute on a proper implementation, all parties, the communication is key. Part of that communication process is listening from a vendor standpoint to the client and seeing things and raising points that you're seeing with all the people that you're interacting with, so that's communicated. Many times as vendors, we come into a situation and we're talking at the end user level to the C level, and having that collaboration, they may not be able to effectively communicate in their own organization, and so they have no idea what the end user is experiencing. So proper communication is very key. Just a quick side story on that. One of the largest online retailers in the world, we were given the opportunity to come in and implement in less than a month with them. Normally our implementations take 3 days or less. We actually took a whole month with them because all of our meetings were telling them and meeting with the right teams to tell them that they didn't have to install or purchase or bring in hardware. And we spent that whole time, that whole month, saying, this is how it is, creating diagrams, creating charts to bring this cloud-based giant into the cloud. And it was very interesting.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. Does anybody have a question they'd like to ask our thought leaders? Thank you.
So as we all kind of dig into social and the different aspects of that, what is the single largest hurdle that your companies are facing in social currently?
If I may, I think the first decision customers need to make is, organizations need to make is, do I want to engage my customers over social? And if I do, how am I going to do that? Because I think some organizations are encouraging the wrong behaviors over social media. For example, back home, a parcel delivery company didn't deliver a parcel to me when they were meant to. So I tried to phone the depot to reorganize it. No, just ringing off, no one was there to answer the phone. So I tweeted rather angrily and copied them in. They phoned me back within 5 minutes. So they've now trained me to complain in a big open space about failures in customer service channels. So I think the key to social is actually make sure your primary contact channels are right, because I think the statistic is something like 85% of communications over social media are about failures in primary contact channels. So you need to make sure those are right before you start going onto social.
She nailed it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think just a lot of companies don't know what to do with social media, and they don't understand that they need to look at their customers and find out where they are. If your target market is 15-year-old girls, you need to be on Pinterest of all places. And a lot of people don't think of that, and they don't think of all the different channels and where they need to devote resources that actually know what they're doing. So you don't look like a goofball on Pinterest. You don't look like a 50-year-old guy like up there like uploading cute little memes. It just looks weird. And so you have to get someone close to your customers and really understand where they are and how they like to communicate. But I think there's an opportunity to instead of have those experiences be negative, if you can proactively understand your channels and where your customers are, you can jump on that and actually drown out a lot of that negativity, as long as you've got the right people in place to handle questions and handle failures, and instead of immediately taking that offline, is actually handle some of that stuff publicly, which I think a lot of companies are very afraid to do. But it can really humanize a business, and your customers can become your champions when they see you handling failures well, instead of hiding the thing you're doing right, which is taking care of your customer.
I think a lot of companies fall up on that. I mean, if you look at some companies' Facebook walls, you actually see the comments saying, wow, thanks for deleting my comments, guys. If you're going to have a Facebook wall,
worst idea ever.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of companies, as you say, are afraid of it and almost try and control social media. And that's the last thing you can do with social media, is try and control it. It's a group thing. It's all about communities. So when you try and enforce rules on it, people, they won't engage positively.
Absolutely. Well, in speaking of social media, I think one of the nice things about a conference like this is you may have interacted with someone on social media. Maybe you're even following the ACE back channel, but these are real life people you can talk to, even after the thought leader discussion is over. So feel free to approach them. I'm sure, well, I don't want to speak for you, but I imagine none of you bite. And let's give them a round of applause for sharing with us today.